What does it mean to be a man in today's evolving world? How do we as men not only step up as men in this world, but transform the definition of masculinity itself? To be the lovers, the heroes, and the role models that the world so desperately craves. How do we begin to recreate our connection to manhood? This is that movement. We are ushering in a new generation of men and a new definition of masculine power to radically transform your sex life, your love life, your work life, and your world. I am Jayson Gaddis, and this is The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. Welcome, everybody. This is Jayson Gaddis, and you are listening to The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. My guest today is Jayson Gaddis. I've been paying attention to Jayson and his writings and his work for, somewhere around 5 years now. He first started popping up on my radar through a mentor of his and definitely one of my earlier influences, David Cates. And through that, just seeing how Jayson just always seemed to have a very mature, grounded approach. The fact that he is a father of two likely played a big role. That while I was playing erotic rock star out in the world and living the single partying lifestyle, he was holding it down as a father. And no doubt that was having him bring forth a very different perspective than the one I was living at the time. And I think that inner drive, knowing that I will always knowing that I will be a father, is one of the things that just had me just noticing and paying attention, the ways in which that was coming through, the way in which he was showing up, the impact that he was having while also holding down this family, just had an impact on me. And just always been very impressed with the wisdom that he brings forward, as I know you will be as well. So with that, welcome, Jayson Gaddis.
Cool. Thanks, Dustin. Psyched to be here.
Yeah, really psyched to have you as well. So tell me, Jayson, who are you and why do you do this? What called you on this path around relationship, around masculine and feminine dynamics?
Yeah, so I'm a student of relationship. I'm a teacher of relationship. I founded the relationship school because I'm on a mission to help people get the class they never got in school, but should have, because we're all so jammed up relationally, most of us, if we're honest.
Totally.
And that's part of my story is I grew up as a sensitive kid, always tracking the relational dynamics, family dynamics, friend dynamics. I was always drawn to the social interactions among people. And then when I started dating, finally, when girls actually started to like me, because they didn't for a long time, I noticed a pattern start to emerge. And that pattern was essentially to keep women at an arm's length. I would get them to basically get really into me and revere me and think I was the man. That was kind of my conquest. It wasn't so much getting laid. It was just getting them to be enamored by me. And then I'd move on because I usually attracted younger, insecure women that I could kind of rescue and be the superior person. But that was my strategy to hide and not do closeness. I didn't know how. I was pretty scared. The moment they would need something, I was like, dude, you're needy. I'm out of here. And so I kept repeating that pattern all through my 20s until I finally hit probably the seventh failure in relationship where I was like, okay, I think maybe I'm the problem because I'm the one common denominator in all these failures. And that's when I set out to work on myself. I was determined to figure this relationship shit out. And, I went to grad school to study psychology and human beings and relationship and, eventually met my wife and the rest is history.
I think that there's a lot of that personal story that a lot of men can relate to, whether it's keeping women at an arm's length, whether it's a component of, well, if they're listening to this show or engaged in my world, they're clearly on some path of personal and or spiritual development. And for most of us, what ends up inspiring us on that path is some form of pain, is having something that's just not working and hitting a point of, fuck, I need to do something. And it sounds like that was your big motivator here as well.
Yeah, that's right. Pain was the big factor.
So what changed? You spoke of working on yourself. What was the big thing that allowed suddenly for you to meet your wife, to have what I'm assuming is a healthy, functioning relationship now?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the big shift was going from the problem is outside of me
Mm,
to the problem is inside of me. And
mm,
that I could actually do something about. And so when I finally set to work and started to study psychology, I was basically studying myself. Everything
mm,
I read was, I was applying it to me, rather than kind of my earlier point of view was analyzing other people from a distance and
mhm,
not actually looking in the mirror. To now, I was like deeply looking in the mirror. I was doing lots of individual therapy, group therapy, eventually plant medicines, and anything I could get my hands on to try to face myself. I was just, very, very hungry to learn. And I was, like you said, I was in a lot of pain. So I was motivated to change some things about myself. And what I learned along the way was it wasn't so much about, some people fear that like, oh, I'm going to be a different person. I was fortunate enough to find teachers that were like, no, we're gonna help you be more of who you are, who you
mm,
actually are, below all your defenses, and that was really appealing to me.
beautiful, beautiful. So I know that one of the things that we decided we were going to dive into today is this, what you described as warriorship in conflict. What does that phrase mean to you?
Yeah. So if we take the frame of men, and we're just talking about
Mm,
men, let's say, and the masculine, a lot of men are not that afraid or they don't look that afraid when it comes to professional sports, training really hard for an Olympic event or a marathon or something, triathlon, all these ultra, events these days, or climbing mountains, climbing Everest, or going off into the wilderness alone. There's like this, it just wakes, we all have that, men have that kind of hunter warrior in us that we would go to battle for anything. But when it comes to intimacy
mhm,
and the discomfort in our own body when someone doesn't like us or they're triggered by us or they're telling us we're not doing it right, a lot of guys just, they have that warrior guy goes out the window, and
totally.
he's now a little boy or a defended, dude who's like got a big ego that doesn't want to admit he has something to learn here.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Either
so,
collapses or responds with anger.
yeah, exactly. He
Yeah.
postures or he collapses. And so, warriorship here for me is like, guys, taking that same mentality and bringing it to yourself, your relationship
Mm.
with yourself and your relationship with your woman or whoever you're partnered with.
So I mean, I've definitely been that guy that you speak of. I think that like you, through enough pain, I've put a lot of intentional work into that and to myself in that regards. But I know it. It's I have that lived experience in my body. But when you speak of taking that same warriorship that you exhibit out in the world and apply it into yourself and into your relationship, how do you do that?
Yeah. So the first thing is the mindset, right? It's just the warrior
Mm,
mindset is that, okay, I've got a little battle here. I've got a big battle. I've got something that's really uncomfortable. I've got some pain. I've got some intensity going on. Rather than run away, I'm going to turn toward it and see if I can learn something about myself. I'm going to see if I can face that which I'm afraid of. So number one is just the mindset, right? And then in a
Hold on.
practical,
So
yeah,
I want to make sure that I'm getting clear here because particularly when you're talking about relationship, bringing that warrior into the relationship that can be focused poorly in such a way that um, your weapons, so to speak, ends up being pointed at your partner, at your significant other. And I'm thinking that's not what you mean. Is that
yeah,
correct?
good point, good distinction there. Yeah, I'm talking about heart warriorship here, where I'm actually laying my sword down,
Yeah.
and I'm saying, "Honey, I'm going to stand in this hot fire of being triggered and being really uncomfortable, and I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to not defend myself. I'm not going to justify my actions. I really want to learn how to understand you, so that you can feel seen by me and feel like I get you." And it's a different kind of warriorship. It's more like um, a keto move or something where I'm not actually trying to attack anyone with
Mhm.
weapons. I'm not defending with armor. I'm setting all that down and saying I want to fight in a way that's has me feel more connected, has you feel more connected. I want to fight for win-win. I want to fight for who you are, and I want to have your back. And that's kind of the warriorship we're talking about here.
So it's same type of commitment and determination to a deepening, that same commitment and determination to winning, but now the win is not just about me, it's about us. It's how do we win?
Yeah, how do we put the relationship first, and how do I put my partner in a position to where she feels really like a priority and like she matters and she feels really held and respected and cared about.
Got it. So what major tips do you have for that man who's like, okay, that sounds good. In fact, maybe I'm tired of the way in which I've been showing up in relationship, but it's still, I don't necessarily know how to apply this more to my life. What tips do you have for him?
Yeah, so I think number one is to admit that you have something to learn.
Good starting place.
Right? Because a lot of us guys, especially strong-willed guys, will just defend and pretend and assume that we know what we're talking about here, and we actually don't.
Well, so, I think that that's the pressure that as men, we grow up feeling like we are supposed to just already know everything, have it all figured out, have the answers.
Yeah, hide my incompetencies, hide my weaknesses, hide my inadequacies. Yeah, so if I can just own that I'm insecure here, I have something to learn. Like, look, if you and I went out to the golf course and you'd never golfed before, and let's say I was a pro golfer, it would be really obvious who's the expert and who's the beginner, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're okay going, oh man, I kind of suck at golf. But if we get in a like partnership, it's for some reason it's a little harder to go, I suck at intimacy. But by admitting that guy is actually going to get a lot farther than the defended man who's pretending like he knows it all.
So, okay, so I'm hearing first, admit that you have something to learn. What next?
Yeah. And then go learn. So learning is things like learning how to not blame. And that's an old habit of most of ours. And it goes a long way when we learn how to take responsibility and say, I feel scared, I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel hurt in your relationship, rather than you did this to me, you did that, you're not talking to me in a respectful way, you're not, that just simple, responsible way of communicating goes a long way.
Yeah, it's simple, but not necessarily easy, especially, as for most of us men, like, to even be in touch with, not even just to express, but even to be in touch with, I feel scared, I feel hurt, can be challenging. These are feelings that we're socialized to detach from.
That's right. Big time. Yeah. And we're conditioned out of this whole thing. So we've got to learn. That's why we got to learn here. I had a lot to learn and I went and learned it, and I'm still learning. So owning our stuff and owning, and even owning is like, if we want to talk about our partner, we can make an I statement like, I'm projecting that you are, I'm perceiving that you are, the story I'm making up about you is. So it's a little more ownership that I don't actually have the truth on you. I'm going to take responsibility that I might be projecting onto you, honey, but you seem angry. We can make those statements, but if we can make them from an I place, like I'm projecting that you're angry, usually people get a little less defensive.
Okay. So, so as he learns to not go into blame, instead own his feelings, admit his lack of competency, like where there are places to learn. What's next? What's the third step, so to speak?
Yeah. So once we do that, we're ready to listen. And I mean, there's certainly more we could say on the I statements and what he could do on his side, but one of the first skills I'd like to teach people is how to listen. So if you want to end a fight quickly, the most mature person in any given moment needs to, again, lay down their arms and say, hey, I'm committed to listen to you. first. I want to make sure you feel understood.
Yeah, it's you know, when you get into those places seeking to understand rather than to be right, that was a big one for me.
Yeah, it's a big one. And once we get this, it's like our partner's like, oh my God, thank you. So listening, and there's a few steps to listening, but what we want to do is get our person in such a way that they feel gotten. So the rule of thumb I have with my wife is I don't understand her until she feels understood.
Mm. Mm.
Not I understand you, honey. Yeah, I do. And she goes, no, you don't. And I go, yeah, I do. That's going to go nowhere.
That's not going to work well.
And we've been in that circle many times, right? So I finally wised up after a few years of like going in a circle, like, oh, it actually goes a little quicker if I just commit to understanding her until she goes, thank you. I feel understood now.
Yeah, like what? Okay. What don't I understand? What do I still need to understand?
Yeah, what am I missing here, sweetie? Like, got it. It sounds like I've got this part, but I'm missing this other part. Can you say it again so that I can make sure I get it?
Got it.
And then eventually that would disarm my partner in such a way that now she can be interested in my experience, and she can start to listen to me.
Got it. So also what I just heard there is seek to understand before seeking to be understood.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't have to be that way, but I'm saying in any given moment, the most mature person needs to like step into that.
I mean, the person who's the least triggered in the moment.
That's
the
right.
Person who's most aware and in their senses.
Yeah, they have the frontal lobe online the most. Yeah.
Got it. So what can a man do if he already is triggered? You know, the place that you're speaking to, I mean, it's a place to get to, but for a lot of us, there's a gap there.
Yeah.
And so in that process of learning these skills, those old patterns particularly are going to come up. He's going to get triggered, and whether in his trigger he shuts down and collapses, or stonewalls, or retreats into his own cave, or ceases to talk, or if him and trigger is angry and yelling or what have you, what can you do in that trigger?
Okay, well, let me zoom out first and talk about the impact of doing your pattern over and over again is actually damaging to the relationship. So if you continue to shut down, you continue to ignore, you continue to get aggressive, you're causing a lot of cortisol to run through your body, and that causes damage to your body long term. And same with your partner. So you need to understand, like us guys need to understand that if the cost of not learning this stuff is high, and it gets higher the older you get. So just to put that out there.
I'm just going to interrupt here to say that sorry, this is me getting vulnerable for a moment. Yeah, that's my story. My health is kind of fucked. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I made a lot of life choices that put a lot of cortisol spikes through my system. But I had massive roller coaster relationships with having grown up in a family that was fighting and yelling and screaming daily throughout my childhood. That was the pattern that I inherited. That's the pattern that ended up coming into the relationships that I ended up having, not just within me, but I ended up attracting partners who had the same thing in their lineage. And we would match, and we would have these blowout fights, and then follow it up with just as passionate fucking, but it would be this highs, lows, and going into such trigger and anger and resentment so regularly. I am certain that it played a role in my adrenal burnout, which I've been dealing with for 3 years now. I've done some major healing work around, and the amount that I do with my life is still insane. But I feel it. my health was majorly affected. And it seemed like everything was fine until one day it was suddenly everything was really not fine anymore. So what Jayson speaks about here, about how those types of cortisol spikes have an effect on your relationship and have an effect on your body and your health. Let me just back that up through personal experience. And I really don't wish this on you because it's tough.
Yeah, that's right. And then that's not even talking about the stats on men and heart disease, right? Men, the number one killer in the US and in the world really is heart disease for men. And the heart is around relationships and also purpose. So of course, if you're not aligned with what you care about in life and you're struggling in your relationship, your heart is there's gonna be a cost on your heart. Mm. So that's the big view, right? Is like, okay, I that's incentive for me to get motivated here to learn. So in the moment, back to your question, right?
Yeah, please.
What do we do in the moment? So it kind of depends on our style. We need to know, are we a fight, flighter, or freezer? So freezers typically shut down. Fighters like to continue to try to work it out and talk and raise their voice. And flighters are people who run away and dissociate. And they might stay there, but just dissociate. And they're like gone. They leave their body. Or they might literally get in the car and drive away and leave relationships when it gets too intense. So you got to understand what your pattern is in your nervous system. And we're all kind of usually have a primary out of all of those. And once you start to understand that, then you can answer this question a little more accurately. Okay, so if I'm a fighter, I need to learn how to calm down and not raise my voice, because that's going to send a trigger to my partner. And then she's going to now feel threatened and very unsafe the more I raise my voice. So I need to learn how to take command of that part of myself. And one way is just a simple timeout. And I like to do this to myself. I'm doing it to myself and my partner.
So he's making a T symbol with his hands if you're just listening.
And I put it in front of my face and or my partner's face, but usually my face is because it communicates in a body language way to the brain, and it helps us more than just words. It helps the other person either stop in the middle of their sentence, or it helps us stop in the middle of our sentence. And then we can just take a breath and say something like, I've hit the eject button. I need to go take a break. I'll be back. And we take a break and we come back. So if our partner's a woman, we're with a woman who's yelling at us, we do that. If we're the one yelling, we can do that. Either way, we need to go take space and just stop the whole process.
So how is that different from flight?
Because you're doing it consciously. You're not running away. You're saying, I need to take a break and I'm going to go in the other room so that I can come back centered and respectful.
See, that piece that you just laid there was part of my learning journey as well, is that if I just felt overwhelmed, I erred towards fight. And if I felt overwhelmed in my earlier attempts to solve this, you're like, I need to leave and just like disappear, she would then feel abandoned.
That's right.
And so what I learned instead was in those moments to make clear that I'm coming back. in those moments, make clear that I'm essentially I'm leaving to take care of me and us in that process. That's making sure through in that moment, as well as through consistency, that clarity that I am committed to remaining in connection. I am committed to this and to us. It's not just I'm gone, peace.
Yeah. And in going away into my room or my car or outside to walk around the block, it's in service of the relationship, honey. And I'm coming back, and we can set the stage ahead of time when we're not in the heat of the moment and just kind of have a plan that, look, I notice we tend to fight. I escalate. This is what happens. I'm going to start taking a break as a way to see if I can gain control of myself. And then I'm going to go meditate for 5 minutes and see if I can get back in my body, back in my heart, and come back in a respectful way with some ownership.
What if this was the new normal in your sex life? Hi, I'm Jayson Gaddis, masculine empowerment coach and creator of enticingdesire.com. And I'm here to tell you that yes, all of this is possible and more. Learn to become the lover that women remember, the one that she brags about to her friends. Head on over to enticingdesire.com to claim your free 24-minute introductory training to becoming the best lover she's ever had. I have 19 years of education, training, and experience in the field of sexuality, and I can tell you that I have seen complete transformations in men from the application of the simple principles presented in this video. Increases in confidence, performance, and satisfaction. With no pills required, no tricks, no gimmicks. This is an introduction to an entirely new way of being that will spark her authentic craving for you and your body. Head on over to enticingdesire.com now and evolve your sexual consciousness.
So another one we can do if we're a shutter downer type of person. That's a little different part of the body and the nervous system. That's usually called a dorsal vagal collapse. And we often people that shut down literally can't talk, and it feels like they can't speak, and then that can trigger a partner a lot. So we need to start to get educated about what that process is like on a frame by frame basis for ourselves. Like, hey, I shut down, I go mute, and my partner feels totally abandoned in that moment. Even though I'm sitting right there, she feels like completely like I'm gone. And so I need to start to work with myself in such a way. And in more advanced moves, I would enroll my partner to come closer to me and put a hand on my leg, or to just hold my hand while I was shutting down, just to like help me stay here. Because this is what I did as a child, right? Well, as you pointed out, we go into whatever we've done, whatever the rut is in our brain, the groove that was carved out, that's what we go to when we get upset. So we need support in the moment. And one of the people that can do that for us is our partner, but often that takes a pretty resourced person. And I wouldn't recommend that in the beginning. If you're both really heated, you got to start to work with your own shutdown and educate your partner. Honey, I shut down. It takes me a good hour and a half, sometimes a day, to even be able to speak and figure out what happened. And so that the partner can then go, oh, right, I can't expect you to come back in 10 minutes because that's how I do it, but I'm not you. You take an entire 24 hours before you're able to even talk about this. And that can be completely okay. It's not ideal, but if you're working against your nervous system, right? You can't override the nervous system. You got what you got. You can rewire it over time through repetitive myelination and care by your partner and you, but in the beginning, you got to just start where you are.
Great. So we've addressed the fight, the shutdown,
which
that's
is the freeze.
Okay.
Yep.
So what about the flight?
So flight is some kind of dissociation. It's a similar deal where up front we educate ourselves and our partner on, it seems like I run away. I literally run away. Like I run outside and get in my car and drive away. I leave the relationship. I threaten the relationship. Or I'm sitting there quietly listening to her, but I'm gone. I'm somewhere else. I'm in la la land. Because that's what a lot of us did as a kid when our dad was yelling at us, is we were looking him right in the eye, but we were on the moon, dissociating. So our work is to come back into our body and put words to our experience. But again, that takes time. And another good one for that person is a timeout. And just a simple hand in front of face, T. I need a break. Most of us have enough frontal capacity online to at least say, I'm taking a break, I'll be back. And then we go lay down, we go put some music on, we meditate to help us come back in our body, and start to explore what just happened there? Where did the wheels come off the bus there?
Got it. You can tell which one I am because I have so much to say on the fight one and so much less to say on the other two. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not bad. I'm not very experienced with those two.
Yeah, and again, touch is a good one here. So our partner eventually can hold our hand, sit close to us, not leave because that's more threatening. They can just be present. Honey, I'm right here. I know you're pissed off. I know I'm pissed off, but I'm not going anywhere. A lot of us need reassurance in those moments because we often didn't get that as kids.
So speaking of, what do you do as a man if your partner's in one of these states?
Yeah. So my recommendation is always learn how to be a mountain. And a mountain sits and is completely present and holds space for a woman's emotional upset and experience, including her dissociation, her wanting to run away, her kicking and screaming. And it's like, honey, I'm right here. I care about you. I love you. I hear you're mad. I hear you're upset. I really hear you're pissed off, and I'm right here.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere.
That can be easier said than learned.
Yep.
It's taken me years, a decade since I first decided that, okay, I need to learn this. And in that decade, I've certainly come very, very far away. But I know for myself, it was a very difficult journey, particularly because, as I said, my fight response was so deeply set in me. That so much practice, so many mistakes, so much coming back to it to get to that place of, yes, there's, first of all, to really recognize, yes, there's really something of value for me here in learning to be a mountain, as you put it, to be that solid anchor, and to recognize that it is possible for me to be this despite my programming, and just keep returning to it and finding that each time any steps that I make in that direction seem to have a positive effect, which give me positive reinforcement to keep coming back and practicing.
That's
more.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and guys listening, you might start out as an anthill where most of us start out. We're not a mountain. We're a little baby anthill, and we can't handle much intensity. And one of the best things that I learned from a few teachers on my journey was to learn how to tolerate more of my own emotional experience.
Totally.
Right? When I started feeling again, when I first went to therapy, and like for 6 months, the woman was like, "What are you feeling?" And I was like, "Nothing." I was actually feeling a lot, but I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to put words to it. But the more I learned how to de-thaw this big iceberg, this frozen man that was like in a cage, the more I started to do that emotional work on myself, the more I could handle other people's emotional intensity and experience.
Yeah, totally.
So that's what helps you go from an anthill to a mountain.
Totally. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other major tips or advice for this man committed to showing up as that warrior in how he deals with himself in relationship?
Yeah, a couple I'm sure you would recommend as well, which is get around some really good guys, some good male friends, where you can emotionally express yourself, banging, sticks and rocks, whatever you need to do to continue to learn how to feel and express yourself. Because a lot of men, for whatever reason, don't feel safe initially in front of the feminine expressing themselves. Some men do, some men don't. But having male friends that can call BS on you, that can also lovingly hold you, that kind of support system is huge. And then doing your reps outside of the relationship. So going to the gym, the metaphorical gym, outside the relationship. So that means if you have a pattern of you do the same thing over and over in your relationship with your partner, you want to go outside the relationship. In addition to working on it in the relationship, you want to go out and see if you can get some traction around that pattern. So that could be, well, it could be hiring a coach or a therapist or someone that actually knows this kind of territory better than you that can help you work through a pattern. For example, men listening, you need to understand that when you find a partner, you finally find the one and you lock horns with them, after a couple of years, after the honeymoon stage, you're going to polarize even more, and you're going to dislike this person. You're going to dislike a lot about this person, and you're going to be projecting your unresolved issues from your childhood onto this person. So mom and dad will get projected onto your partner. And that's helpful so that you can heal the injury that you grew up with. So if you have that kind of view and this kind of framework, you can begin to work on the projection with mom. Let's say if you're a guy and you're like, for example, in my relationship early on, I was projecting onto my woman that she was needy. or, passive or something, because I had a mother who I perceived as needy and passive, and it would trigger me because my mom wanted me to kind of help her out, and then I'd resent her. So in my adult relationship with a woman, I played this pattern out, right? So I attract a woman she's actually not needy or helpless or passive, but that's what I was perceiving, right? And so I had to do a lot of work around, why does this bother me so much? And it was really between me and my mom. It had nothing to do with my woman. So I went and did that work. And so then I could actually appreciate my partner and her style, let's say, versus mine. Plus I was also disowning my own passivity, my own neediness. I was disowning it and just projecting that onto her. So it's also like our partner helps us reclaim disowned parts of ourselves. So if we have that view, then that can help too.
So that view is likely a very radical concept for a lot of men. And, it's certainly not widespread in our cultural consciousness. And so in taking on that view, I get how even just holding that frame changes how you show up, because now suddenly, as you described earlier in this podcast, suddenly it's not about you and what you're doing wrong. It's more about let me see myself more clearly, and what inner work do I need to do, and how can I create changes within myself, and therefore have that healthier relationship.
Yeah. And it is somewhat radical, and it's pretty straightforward psychology 101 that, people that study this stuff we get, but people new to this work, it is a little like confusing and maybe like a foreign language, but I just want the listener to understand this is like, this is how psychology works, and this is how relationships work, is we just we attract, some version of our family, and so that we can heal the injuries, and so that we can actually love bigger and open our heart more to that which we've disowned. So it's really powerful to start to see relationship as a path to more freedom, more wholeness, more choice. And once we sort of embrace that, it's like a whole different ballgame.
That's fantastic. Thank you, man. Do you have any other parting tips, so to speak, for our men?
Yeah, let me give one more. That's one of my favorite acronyms that I share with men especially, and your listeners might like it. It's called No Fracking.
No fracking. Okay.
Okay, and it's an acronym. So F stands for no fixing. Mm-hmm. Women don't like to be fixed. Partners don't like to be fixed. No rescuing. That's R. Mm-hmm. Women also don't want to be rescued by you and your cool, with your Superman cape on. They also don't like advice, especially when they're not asking for it and they're in an emotional place. So that's A, F-A-R-A, F-A-R. And then C is complaining. It's just a good practice in relationship to not complain about our partner and how they're being or how they're talking or how emotional they are. And then the last one, K, is killing. No killing her experience. So what I mean by that is guys will say, she'll say, hey, I feel really sad right now that that I just lost my job. And he'll say, well, look on the bright side. It's not that big of a deal. Why are you sad? You shouldn't be sad. Things like that, rather than acknowledging that her experience is valid. Even if it disagrees and doesn't compute with your worldview, her experience is hers, and it's 100% valid. So no fracking is just a good rule of thumb to remember when you're learning how to listen to your partner, especially in a way that works for them, that's going to have them feel understood. Because a lot of guys just frack all over their woman.
Yeah, I mean, each of these things are big. The no fixing component. I mean, this is often men's go-to, that sense of like, something's wrong, let me fix it. And often she just wants to be heard. She wants to be understood. She's actually very, she may actually be an extremely capable individual who can find her own answers, just her process of getting there may look very different from your own. And particularly women, the more feminine they are, the more true this tends to be. These emotions that they're experiencing just need to move. And when you go into fixing mode, there isn't the same space for those emotions to move. She's not ready. She's often not ready to be in that state yet. And also, that tends to come from a very logical, rational, linear mental process, which is not necessarily the way in which she's going to find her answers. It may be, but as men in our larger society, we tend to hold up the logical, rational, directional, masculine way of doing things as the right way, the good way, the more important, the more valid way. Whereas the non-linear, the emotional route, the more flow perspective, the more intuitive, listening to the body, knowing, which are the more feminine ways of moving through the world, tend to be discounted, seen as frivolous, less important, less valid. And the more we can let that go and really embrace the value of the feminine and the feminine approaches, the more we can trust her process. And with that trusting, knowing that you don't need to fix, you don't need to rescue, she can find her way. Even if it looks very different from your way.
And it's she doesn't want to be insulted. She wants to be trusted that she can, stand on her own 2 feet here.
What about this rescuing piece? Again, this is that white knight, that savior complex. You mentioned this being a big part of your younger years. It was certainly part of mine as well. Here's a wounded little bird. Let me come and save you. I did this so many times. I was really good at it. And yet I didn't seem to create the healthiest relationships from it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was essentially rescuing my mom because that's what I did as a little boy. So, you guys have to look into the deeper history here of you're playing out a pattern, and it's for you to get a hit of dopamine or pleasure by rescuing. And, it's okay to help someone, but you need to do the work required to get you to transmute your kind of rescuer into, a badass helper that is a little more clean with the help. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with helping people when they're down. But, to assume she needs to be rescued is a little arrogant.
And advice.
Yeah, I mean, guys are good at that. We can give each other advice all day long, and we mostly like that. And advice has a place, so it's important. But usually, if you've noticed from your own experience, listener, when your lady is upset and you try to give her advice, she usually shuts down or she gets defensive and feels misunderstood. So advice it doesn't usually go anywhere. However, once in a while, when a woman says, I'd like some advice, or your partner asks for advice, then great, give advice. Let it rip.
Mm. And complaining, you mentioned that as what are we complaining about? Complaining about your partner?
Complaining about our partner's emotionality, their way of being. And, some guys can bond around this, the ball and chain. My old lady won't let me out tonight. She's so emotional at home. She's so this, she's so that. And it just it's not really respectful, and it's not generating the kind of relationship vibe that you probably want. So no one likes to be around.
Even when you're doing that amongst, your guy friends, on one hand, it can feel like venting, but at the same time, it's like you're further training your nervous system to perceive her in this way.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just keep running that story that it's a big fat problem. Instead, like you want to hang around guy friends who are like, dude, stop complaining about your lady, and like, why don't you start to see how her way of being is helping you grow? Like, how about if we hung around guys like that?
And then help each other grow. And of course, killing her experience, you've already explained in depth. So this is great. I really appreciate, Jayson. Again, I knew that you would impart some really valuable wisdom. I mean, what man hasn't experienced some form of challenge in his relationships? And I think that your words are, well, I'll say universally valuable. Where would our listeners find out more about you?
Yeah, there's a couple places. One, I think it would be useful if they wanted to go deeper on this fracking thing. I created a little cheat sheet, and they can go to JaysonGaddis.com. That's Jason with a Y.com/less drama. Like, that's for guys who want less drama in their relationship. Because one of the things I like to say is, if you really want less drama in your relationship, then you better start learning conflict. And it's a little bit of a paradox, but it just feels true in my experience. So they can go there, and then just my website in general is JaysonGaddis.com, and I host the Smart Couple podcast for guys that want to take a regular hit off the relational pipe of how we do this dance together, for guys that are in particular that are interested in long-term partnership, because that's the conversation I'm in. I'm married 10 years this year. Together 14. I'm in it for the long haul, as long as I'm in it for, and same with my wife. So, and it's really challenging. So guys can get more practical tips on that podcast.
Wonderful. Men, please do check it out. JaysonGaddis.com, JaysonGaddis.com/no drama.
Less drama.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Good distinction there.
That'd be cool. No drama.
But we can, depending on where your current level of drama is, we may be able to reduce it dramatically.
Yeah.
Thank you for being our guest today. And man, my assistant Michael and I, we've just put a bunch of time into creating what we're calling the Evolved Masculine Blueprint for you. I get questions quite regularly around, so what, help me understand really more deeply, what is the Evolved Masculine? Like, detail this out for me. Help me really grasp it. So I've detailed it out in a very simple yet deep manner, in I think it's an 8-minute audio, and you can get that at evolvedmasculine.com/blueprint. So this is brand new for you, free offering of, and as well as guidance as to how to use this blueprint to walk your path towards the Evolved Masculine. And please do check it out. This has been Destin Garrick, and thank you again to my guest, Jayson Gaddis, and you've been listening to The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. Tune in next week. Thanks.